So, and Terry Loneker, who's here, came back for this again. So we have some repeat attendees, so I really appreciate that. All right, so this is me. If you want to learn more about me, you just go to the website. My website designer, Daphne Manzione, she's here. She's a web designer. She's a social media influencer. She manages my social media. And I do want you to know that she's live streaming the event on Instagram and Facebook. So we are live now. So if you don't want to be in the screen, then don't sit in this area. All right, some of you will be a little bit more pronounced than others. All right, and you'll probably eventually be able to find snippets of this presentation on the website, which is www.eaglerock, it's spelled EGGLROCK.com, eaglerock.com. So let's just get started. Now I do have to confess, because Dr. Giroux is here, that some of these slides were pilfered from a presentation that Perlmutter gave at the Integrative Healthcare Symposium, which I felt at liberty to do since I was also a speaker at that symposium, and people have been pilfering my slides. So we're kind of an even deal there. So I really like this. I really like this illustration to quantify the market value for Alzheimer's disease. So I liked the way that he very creatively compared the cost of treatment for dementia to the market value for all of Google at $800 billion, all of Apple at $1 trillion, and the cost of global dementia care also at $1 trillion and growing. Now, the reason why I decided for this that I was going to focus on Alzheimer's disease for this summer is because I go to a lot of networking events. I go to, on Fridays, once a month on Friday, which I'm not teaching my swimming class with these guys, I go to a breakfast that's usually attended by a senator or an assemblyman or, someone of that ilk. Come on in, ladies. Thank you for joining us. We're running out of seats here, though. Yeah, Marianne is the youngest person in the room. I'm pretty sure. I hope Come on in. And well, the reason why I picked the topic is because I go to these lectures and you see these very important people, these VIP people, saying, when I get elected into office, I'm going to sink a ton of money into developing a cure for Alzheimer's disease. A cure for Alzheimer's disease is right around the corner, and I'm going to make sure that we find it. Well, I'm here to tell you that as a pharmacologist who spent 30 years developing the drugs to treat Alzheimer's disease, we are far from a cure, and it is not right around the corner. There are some efficacious things that we're doing, but because the therapeutic things that we're doing are hard to quantify, most people out there don't really know, what's working and what's really not working. So I decided to share a little bit of my experience in the development of treatments for Alzheimer's disease and what's working better at Eagle Rock Nutrition.
Can I just say that I have early onset Alzheimer's and I've just been accepted into a blind drug trial. Didn't start yet. In the medication.
Yes, so the Cognitive Research Center, that's awesome. So I actually was planning to, they sent me, so I was going to talk, I'm going to talk about the Cognitive Research Center in New Jersey, which is located in Springfield. And I did call them and they graciously gave me a few of their pamphlets. So I'll pass them around. If you don't really need it, then don't take it, because I only have a few. They did interview me before I kind of really got launched. So we'll bring them up again. Okay. All right, so I do want to talk, so the thing that's really alarming, and the reason why so many people want so desperately to develop a treatment for Alzheimer's disease is because while heart disease is the #1 cause of death in the United States, you could see that cause of death is decreasing. You can see that it's decreasing for heart disease, but mortality due to Alzheimer's disease is increasing at an astronomical rate. As a matter of fact, it's the only major disease that's increasing so prominently. Right? So definitely very important. So whenever someone gives a lecture on Alzheimer's disease, they always show this slide, which is a PET scan produced by Dr. Daniel Amen, who's probably one of the most well-known authorities on brain health, cognitive health, and Alzheimer's disease. And these are his scans that everybody shows to just illustrate that when your brain is healthy, it's nice and smooth, and when it's not healthy, when you're in the stages of cognitive impairment and subsequently Alzheimer's disease, you can see that it shrinks, it becomes very pocked, lots of plaques and tangles that we'll talk about in a minute.
Laura, can you just like step aside so like these guys can see?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay,
They're
it.
watching.
So if Alzheimer's disease is basically the loss of your memory, I need to explain to you what promotes memory. All right, so now I don't want to be too sciencey about this, but this is just a figure that you're going to see 2 more times besides today. What you're looking at is a neuron. All right, you're looking at a giving neuron and a receiving neuron. What are they giving and what is receiving? So here are the 2 neurons, and they meet at a synapse. And in the synapse is where the one that's delivering something to the one that's receiving something. And what is he delivering? A neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. All right, so remember that. That's a very important neurotransmitter that you need to have exceptional memory. All right, so that's what's happening at the synapse. So this is very important for cognitive health. All right, so here's another cartoon diagram of the neurons doing basically the same thing. But I wanted to give you a little bit more clarity around this very important molecule called acetylcholine.
I'm filming.
It's produced from acetyl-CoA and choline. So you're probably sitting there saying, well, I want more of that, right? So I'm going to tell you, well, how do you get more of that, all right? Well, acetyl-CoA is largely derived from the carbohydrates that you eat and also from the fats that you eat. So you get acetyl-CoA from your diet, and it's produced from lots of metabolites in your body. All right, choline, which is the other part of acetylcholine, right? So choline is a vitamin, basically a vitamin, that is found in high amounts in eggs and fish and whole grains, right? Which is one of the reasons why, while I applaud people that are vegetarian and vegan, you know, I'm just concerned about some of the nutrient deficits. So this might be a nutrient deficit that you will incur if you're not eating eggs. I mean, it doesn't have to be a deficit. I mean, you can find plant-based sources of choline, but you have to be very dedicated to your diet. All right, so this is just to show you how your body makes acetylcholine. All right, so now if you need that neurotransmitter for memory, right, then you want to preserve it for as long as you possibly can. So what are the drugs that we use to give people that are losing their memory? All right, we give them something to preserve the integrity of the acetylcholine. All right, so the molecule that causes the breakdown of acetylcholine is called acetylcholinesterase, or cholinesterase for short. It's an enzyme that causes degradation of the acetylcholine. So the drugs that we give to our Alzheimer's patients are cholinesterase inhibitors. They block the breakdown of this neurotransmitter. The problem is that, harking back to the picture of the brain that was shrunk and pockmarked, the problem is that when you start to lose those neurons, you're not making the acetylcholine. So having something that preserves the integrity isn't going to help very much if you're not making it to begin with. All right, and that's why over time the cholinesterase inhibitors don't help Alzheimer's patients very much. That is a category of drug that's used in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, but eventually those neurons and the synapse just disappears, and you're not making the neurotransmitter to begin with. All right, so what else can we do? So now second generation, so as your cognitive health is declining, all right, what else can you do? All right, so there's another neurotransmitter called glutamate. So again, here's that same picture. Here's the giving neuron, here's the receiving neuron, here's the synapse, and here's the glutamate, which is another neurotransmitter that does something. So all you really need to remember is that glutamate is very excitatory. All right, it gets things happening, it gets things going. All right, but too much of a good thing causes destruction of the neurons. So what's happening here is that the glutamate is binding to its receptor, and it causes release of calcium. So you guys know calcium, right? Calcium, just like breathing. All right. So calcium is like a messenger. We call it a secondary messenger that supports memory and learning. So the stimulation of this receptor to cause the the secretion of calcium is a really good thing, except that too much calcium damages the nerve cells. All right, so with medicines that are used to ensure the integrity of the glutamate, so another drug, I'm sorry I didn't call out the name of these drugs. So Aricept and Exelon, these might be the names of drugs that you're familiar with. All right, so now another category are the glutamate blockers. So too much of a good thing. So now you want to block the glutamate. All right, so Namenda is a glutamate blocker. And the problem with that is that the effect of Namenda is very small. Right, and then we have something called Namzaric, which is basically a combination of Aricept and Namenda. So and this is new. I think I met somebody whose spouse was now just being prescribed this. And so now you're being prescribed true drugs that have very limited efficacy.
Is this why some people assume that you should have a gluten-free diet if you have Alzheimer's? Because they're...
I will mention that later on, but
Okay.
that's not really related to this.
Okay.
All right?
Glutamate.
Yes. Yeah, glutamate and gluten are at Rutgers, at Kane, and at Stevens all at the same time. And believe me, we have an entire talk about gluten. Gluten is a protein that's long and stringy. It's a combination of two proteins that traps moisture and air. And it's very useful in baking because it makes baked goods have a really good mouthfeel. So we eat a lot. And the problem with gluten is that we started putting them in everything, and we sort of overdosed on gluten. And so there is some relationship between the overdose of gluten and brain health, but that will come later. All right, so not only are the two drugs that are prescribed for Alzheimer's disease not all that effective, but they come with some very common side effects. So not the least of which is nausea and vomiting. And so because of these side effects, which I'm not really going to read to you, because of the side effects, you end up with poor patient compliance because it makes you feel crummy. All right? All right, so now we're going to move on. So what did I work on? So when I was working on Alzheimer's disease, what was I doing? So this is an illustration of some of the pathology in Alzheimer's disease, and that is as though your brain is shrinking, all right, it's producing things called plaques and tangles. And, plaque, it's an angry sounding word, so it looks sort of like this. And so my job for at least 20 years of my life was to prevent the development of these plaques. And every now and then I get to work on the tangles. So Barbara, my sister asked a really good question 2 weeks ago. What's the difference between the plaques and the tangles, and are they equally culpable? Well, I do want to say this. For every 9 people that are working on plaques, only 1 person is working on tangles, because we know a lot less about the tangles than we do about the plaques. But we do see the production of both of them as the brain atrophies. All right. So moving past Aricept and Namenda, so moving beyond the neurotransmitters, now we're hyper focused on getting rid of the plaques. And where did that bring us? Not very far at all. All right. So this paper was published just a year ago, February of 2018. All right. So I'm not going to read this to you, but all the efforts that we made over in about, say, 25 years to prevent the production of those plaques was all for naught, because we came up with some really great drugs that inhibit the plaques, but they didn't do anything for memory, right? There's no cognitive improvement. So we don't even know if the plaques are related to the pathology of Alzheimer's disease or not. So now we're going to move beyond the plaques and tangles, and I really want to focus on what's going on at these more holistic centers. So here is that Cognitive Research Center of New Jersey.
Yes.
I passed around their little brochure. They're doing amazing things. So at the last lecture, a lot of people in the audience were very interested in learning about their own cognitive health. So they were all interested in going there to be participants. And can you say something about so you went there, and maybe can you say anything about what they did for you? What's the intake like?
Well, I had been there for some earlier assessment. I had to go have a physical to make sure I was, fit. And this has all taken a fair amount of time. I only now went through this whole assessment for whether I qualified to be in the drug trial. The fact is, my blood pressure was too high. They said, "Oh no," it was the last thing. They said, "No." Okay, so lie down and breathe slowly.
Yeah.
Try again. We made it.
Oh, good. All right.
Because all that.
So it is an intake, and there is lots of cognitive testing, and they kind of help you. They kind of give you direction and guidance on the best path forward for you based on your cognitive health.
I would say
Right.
one of the things that they do that for those of us who have early onset Alzheimer's or really just have Alzheimer's is they every month, every 2 months they have an Alzheimer's cafe, which is just an open session with them and chat. The first time I went, I never laughed so hard. I mean, I haven't laughed that hard in years because there's so much ridiculous stuff that happens to all of us. But you're embarrassed to talk to other people about it sometimes, or they're embarrassed because
Thank
you're
so much
asking
for
us.
sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, so they're very supportive to your social needs.
Very
which is
good.
really nice.
All right. So I'm going to tell them that you said that. But then there's also the Nestle Health Science Center, which I put on the slide because they're in New Jersey. They're in Bridgewater. They moved from Madison to Bridgewater, doing lots of really excellent things, looking at the relationship between nutrients and cognitive health. And then Dr. Richard Isaacson at the Weill Cornell Medicine Institute, he's also doing some really fantastic things outside of the realm of drug prescription in cognitive health. Do you know him? Dr. Isaacson? No? I'm so surprised. All right. Okay. So what are all these centers, what are they unearthing? What are they showing us that's really important for brain health? All right. So you have to be fit, right? You have to really pay attention to your brain, your bones, eye. So they're looking at all these things. So these centers not only are looking at cognitive health, but they're all looking at your level of fitness, eye health, vascular function, cardiovascular health, and the immune system. I'll mention the immune system in a little bit. All right. So what is the consensus? All right. So one thing that even we've learned even from the failed clinical trials. All right, what is the reason? So the main reason that Merck and Pfizer are saying that the clinical trials are failing is because we're not starting the trials soon enough. We're not delivering the medicine, when it needs to be delivered. So when is that? It's actually before the symptoms present. And that means 20 years before you're diagnosed. So the crazy thing is that the people at Merck and Pfizer think that you're going to take one of their supposedly billion-dollar drugs 20 years before you even present with any symptoms. So who's going to do that, taking drugs that have all those horrible side effects, right? So they call that you need to be you need to start treatment in the prodromic phase. So that's an interesting word. So now you learn one word, prodromic, right? So I think it's a cool. I even like saying it. All right. So your options are to take expensive medicines, or the studies are showing that altering your lifestyle can really have substantial benefit. Now, yes, granted, we want you to change your lifestyle when you're 20, right, and 30, but some of the clinical studies that I'm going to show you are in people who are have mild cognitive impairment and who also have Alzheimer's disease. So that's remarkable. And the thing is why I feel bad actually having to say that the data is remarkable. This is a sign. So we're in Union. This is where I live. This is a sign that somebody posted to the Union Neighborhood Facebook page. It was a sign that was at a lake around in town that basically said, please don't feed the ducks bread. You're filling up their stomachs so they're not eating the foods that they're supposed to be eating and they're getting sick. All right, so the same thing is true of you. You cannot eat bread all day. What should you eat? The same thing as the ducks. Grapes. I got grapes back there. Chopped lettuce, bird seed for the fiber, peas, corn, and oats. That's exactly what I want you to be eating, right? And the other thing, and then on the radio, somebody was. It was a stupid conversation, but it was people were talking about their pets, and this one woman said that they were talking about how much money you spend on your pet. So she was talking about her bird, that the bird was like practically killed by his bird food because it was too high in cholesterol. So the bird food was too high in cholesterol and killing the bird. So she had to get something that was more holistic. All right, so what is it that I want you to eat, and what are those three centers are doing a remarkable effort just to show how when you follow a diet called the Mediterranean diet, just how efficacious it is in improving your cognitive health. So this is actually the only slide I'm going to present today about the diet, right? I could do a whole lecture on this alone, but I don't want to do that today, right? But I'm going to start with this pyramid, which is remarkable in that it has socialization at the bottom. So this is the most important remedy to improve your brain health, and that is to be social, to initiate conversations with as many people as possible. Half the people in this room know my Aunt Dorothy, who passed away 2 years ago, and she lived to 94. She talked to every single person that she saw. She would tell anybody my entire life story, my sister's life story. She would talk to anybody she knew, and we have profound heart disease in our family. Both my grandmother, her mother, and my grandfather died of a heart attack. Not her. She lived into the bitter end from all that talking. All right. But now we're going to get into nutrition. All right, so usually when you meet people, you got to get out of the house. You got to get out of the house, you got to get into the sun, because there are studies that show that vitamin D is very critical for brain health. There is a researcher who's really captured the market, I'd say, on the importance of vitamin D. So you get most vitamin D comes from the sun. If you live in New Jersey, we don't really have enough sun. You have it for July and August. That's about it. So I'm not immune to recommending vitamin D supplements. So that's just hold that thought. All right, now look at the center of the pyramid. The center of the pyramid is very, very colorful. We want you to eat the rainbow. Why do we want you to eat fruits and vegetables? And I'm talking like 8 to 13 servings every day. A serving is a half a cup. A serving is only this much, right? That's not really that much. 8 to 13 of them is only that much. So you can do this. You definitely can do this. And the reason why you want to eat all those fruits and vegetables, because they have nutrients like folate, which is a B vitamin, thiamine, also called B1, other B vitamins. So there's a whole clinical study that was done years ago to demonstrate the importance of B vitamins in general and brain health. Unfortunately, the data were misinterpreted, and they said there was no correlation, except that, well, what we learned from that study was that the reason why we couldn't quantify an efficacious effect of the B vitamins is because we didn't look at the basal levels. So if you're not deficient to begin with, if you don't have a vitamin D deficiency, then taking more of a B vitamins will not help your brain. But if you are deficient and you add them, you will see an effect. So I just want to say that. And then the other thing that's very rich in fruits and vegetables are antioxidants. So oxidants are free radicals. It's an angry word, free radicals. It's such an angry word. It does a lot of damage. Clogs your arteries, damages your neurons, damages your DNA, turns bad genes on, right? So you wanna eat all these fruits and vegetables to neutralize all those free radicals. Then, all right, as we get closer to the top of the pyramid, we want good fat. Good fat replaces bad fat. So if you have high cholesterol and high triglycerides, I'm going to add lots of good fats to your diet. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish. Now, I just want you to tell this story all the time. People are sick of hearing it. But one of my last projects at Merck was to develop a synthetic fish oil and a synthetic omega-3. I had 40 chemists, which is an obscene number of chemists to be making one molecule. And the experiments were such a pain in the neck because fatty acids are not soluble in water, and it's really hard to do experiments on analogs of omega-3 fatty acids. I'm not going to show you the structure. I just want you to know that I hated that project so much that I'd come in every day and say, can't we just eat fish? So now I get to say that, and I really mean it. All right, on top of the pyramid, you're eating meat sparingly, poultry, eggs, cheese, and yogurt to get that choline. And also, I can't say enough important things about B12. B12 is a B vitamin that you can only get from foods made in animals. You cannot get B12 from plants. It's very important for your brain health and overall health for a lot of reasons that I'm not going to go into today. But if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you have to take a B12 as either a tincture, a supplement, a shot, but you have to get your B12 in some way. All right, and then in Mediterranean communities like Greece, Italy, they're not eating red meat very often at all, maybe twice a month. And we have clinically shown in this Mediterranean diet, lots of clinical studies looking at this diet, showing just how many ways this is the optimal meal plan. Now, and then I do want to mention the importance of water, at least 8 cups of water every day for everyone. But don't feel obligated to drown yourself. I have a lot of patients who have kidney failure. When your kidneys are not working, well, now you have to like kind of monitor your fluid intake. So 8 cups is about right. You can have more than that, but that's about right. Now, I want to say something about red wine. All right, red wine in moderation or not at all. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm a party pooper here. All right, while there may be some studies that show that wine consumption or alcohol in general has resveratrol, which is a great antioxidant. It increases the good cholesterol, HDL. I do want you to know that in the realm of cognitive health, wine is a stimulant. So if you have problems with your brain, you're probably not a good sleeper. So it's a stimulant that's going to disrupt your sleep. And just other things as well. So I'm just not really going to push the one glass of red wine. I'm not having it. Everyone else does. I'm quite the rebel as nutritionists go because I'm not insisting on the 1 glass of red wine a day. So if you don't drink, then you shouldn't start.
Alcohol kill brain cells?
In enough, in a large quantity, it will kill brain cells. Yes, absolutely.
Could you take in like grape juice or something that doesn't have to be wine?
I eat fruits and vegetables, and you'll get resveratrol. You'll get enough. Yeah. And by the way, as a serving of grapes, I let my patients have 15 grapes a day. That's 1 serving. All right. All right. So now I want to call your attention to. So I mentioned omega-3 fatty acids and how important they are, and the importance of fruits and vegetables. This paper was published yesterday. All right. All right. So this paper is a review to show how carotenoids, so carrots, all right, and omega-3 fatty acids are neuroprotective. All right. So I love this. Now I do have to say, as a pharmacologist, it's hard to pull the wool over my eyes. So I will say that I like the way the authors broke it down to this is what's anecdotal, this is what's observed, and this is what's clinically measured. So I will not lie, all right? The clinical measurement was hard to prove statistical significance. However, all right, that's the nature of the beast, all right? When you make a drug, that's a single test article. You're testing one compound in a hospital under a clinical setting where all your variables are controlled. When you're testing the role of a diet, it's very hard to draw a straight line between what you're eating and the outcome of your health. So you are going to have a hard time proving efficacy, all right? And that's why they are recruiting patients for this CARES trial to look at the efficacy of the combination of carotenoids, fruits and vegetables, and omega-3 fatty acids. All right, so I just want to point out just how important consumption of just those 2 things are. So eat your fruits and vegetables and eat your fish. And if you're not eating fish, I want you to take an omega-3 supplement, and Dr. Giroux will get you a really good one. All right, so this is what I do to get carotenoids into my patients. I didn't present this at the last night 2 weeks ago, but I am presenting it today now that I read that paper yesterday. So I do a lot of stuff here at Eagle Rock Nutrition, but one of the things that I really like is Juice Plus. It's a company that owns farms and nurseries all over the world, and they have a proprietary method for harvesting fruits and vegetables. They quantify the carotenoid content of every lot. That's their quality control metric, is how many carotenoids are in there. And they actually, they have 40 published clinical studies that shows the level of the carotenoids in the blood, so that if you are seeing an efficacious result in heart health, lipid lowering, blood sugar, gut health, they can say that, well, as the levels of the carotenoids go up, the levels of, say, the cholesterol goes down. All right, so I can't say enough good things about that. I do have a little few boxes just to illustrate that. That's all I'm going to say, but I do want to say this. I didn't mention that I am a food scientist and the chair of the Food Science Advisory Board at Rutgers. So I therefore have to go to these Institute of Food Technologists meeting, which only Marianne was there and I wasn't there this year. Right, but the last time I went, which was last year, you walk the vendor floor, which is exhausting. She says yes. Right? You walk the vendor floor, and I actually ran into the company that produces the fruit and vegetable powders for this company. So I saw a table with all these fruit and vegetable powders, and I said, "Do you make this for Juice Plus?" He said, "Yes, but don't tell anybody because that's competitive intelligence." Yeah. All right. So I'm going to move on. All right. But I also want to talk about the importance of the omega-3 fatty acids. I will say that so as far as omega-3s go, I like a lot of them. I have about 5 different ones that I like. I actually have this one, I'll pass it around, that's specific for neuro health. So this is Omegagenics Neuro 1000, so I'll just pass it around. It's burpless, I like that, it's definitely burpless. But I also like this brand from Juice Plus. It's one of their newest products, but it's completely vegan. So how do fish make omega-3 fatty acids? They eat the algae. Algae is just a plant in the lakes, so they eat the algae, and that's how they make the omega-3 fatty acids. So they have capitalized on that observation to create an omega from algae, but then they also brought in some other omegas that also have specific health benefits. So I'm not going to get into all that, but I just want to say that this is one of my favorite omegas, just because we're talking about the importance of omegas in brain health. Now, the doctor who brought diet to the attention of everyone in the brain community is this Dr. Martha Claire Morris. She created what's called the Mind Diet. So the last time everybody was taking pictures of this, I don't know why, I don't see anybody too interested in that part. So the Mind Diet. So it's eat this, not that. Basically that Mediterranean diet, but she does emphasize drinking, like you must drink a glass of wine every day. So I crossed that out. I'm sorry. I'm a party people. But really, again, those healthy fats. Fish at least once a week. Olive oil is the primary oil used in meal preparation. Eat your nuts. Eat your avocados.
Excuse me, are you saying that this slideshow, this information is not going to be accessible to us again? You have to take photographs of it?
Well, this is when you do presentations, like this is my presentation, I own it. I'll give it again to your audience, but I will not share it. It's sort of copyrighted material.
No fruits?
But this is a little limiting, which is why I don't really kind of.
What about watermelon?
I got it.
Well, these are the only things that she researched, and this is what was in the study. I definitely feel that the Mediterranean diet is a little bit more inclusive and more helpful. All right, so there are a couple of things that I take exception with, but she is the most well-known for creating this Mind Diet. All right, so I want to do a little deep dive on why foods in the Mediterranean diet are so useful for brain health. All right. All of those foods, all right, are considered to be low glycemic index. And if you're one of my patients, you know that when you come to my office, I craft for you a low glycemic index meal plan, which not only will help to lower your blood sugar, it will help to reduce your weight. Because the thing that makes you gain weight is insulin, all right? So when you eat a meal, your blood sugar goes up. All right, as soon as that blood sugar goes up, your pancreas secretes insulin, which makes the blood sugar go down. It takes the sugar out of your blood, it brings it to your muscles so that you can exercise, into your brain so that you can think. That brain fog that you have at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is that blood sugar dropping, and then you go and have a snack and it goes back up and you feel better, but it's probably going to make your waist come out a little bit. All right, and the problem is that as we keep eating and eating and eating, because we live in this age of food abundance, right, the insulin is just always going up. So we have trained ourselves to make the insulin go up all the time. And at some point, right, the insulin is going to stop doing its job. It's not going to take the sugar out of the blood, and you will be insulin resistant. And we see that compared to healthy people, those who suffer from mild cognitive impairment, they are more insulin resistant, right, than the healthy people. All right. So that's one illustration of how we correlate, insulin resistance with brain health. Mary.
So is this, so my mom has dementia, my dad's a scientist, and he's been sort of updating us along the way. And I understood that we've moved away from plaques, but now we're talking more about the relationship to diabetes and insulin. So is this sort of the current thinking?
Yeah, this is the
cause?
current thinking.
Okay.
So if this is one problem that's related to Alzheimer's and cognitive impairment, it's probably not the main thing, but it's definitely a manifestation.
Okay.
All right. So probably as related besides the death of the neuron, the insulin resistant, you not being able. So you're not able to get the glucose into the brain so that it can produce the energy in the brain. So that's basically what's happening. No energy in the brain. Right? Just to simplify that. All right. So the Mediterranean diet is low glycemic index, right? So you're not going to be relying on sugar as much. Right now. So Dr. Perlmutter is really pushing this ketogenic diet, which I have not bought into, but it does allow me to introduce a topic that might be useful in Alzheimer's disease. So in a ketogenic diet, the majority of your calories come from fat, not from sugar. All right, and so if 70 to 80% of your calories are coming from fat, right, that means that you're going to be using the metabolites of fat to fuel the brain. Those metabolites are called ketone bodies. And these readily penetrate the brain and are readily used to make energy in the brain. So while I do not initiate a ketogenic diet very often, it's very rare, it does seem to be a strategy that can help with that insulin resistance, because now you're not relying on insulin, right? You're just producing those ketone bodies, which are a ready supply of energy in the brain. All right, and so, yes.
I have a question. If you're having a diet that's 80% fat, what the hell are you eating?
Oh, what an excellent question. That is so great. That's the reason why I don't promote a ketogenic diet very often. You're eating lots of coconut oil. You're eating a lot of artificial things. You're eating so 20% of your calories are coming from meat. Meat has a glycemic index of 0, but not really, depends on what kind of meat you're eating. All right, you're eating, a lot of fish. You're eating like cheese. You're eating lots of high-fat foods. And because it's so hard to figure out what to eat, you end up eating, doing these ketogenic shake. All right. So here, I'm going to give this to you. You can have it. All right. Don't throw it away. Try it. Yeah. So that's a ketone shake. All right. And then you can start taking these ketone bodies themselves. So here are some exogenous ketones. Here's some. So you could actually, consume the ketones. And some people. So I've been told, I have not seen the data for this, that even in the presence of carbohydrates, your brain will still preferentially utilize these exogenous ketones. I'm not really sure of that, right? So I'm not really on board with that, but I have a free container. So there was a friend of mine was going to come. I was going to give her the ketones, the exogenous ketones. All right, so that's ketones, but this data is kind of compelling, right? I told you that ketones are readily taken up by the brain. Well, they are. So here's some data that shows that compared to healthy people, people with mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease take up those ketones just fine. So, and the benefit here is that it eliminates some of that brain fog.
Recently, we learned that the rise in the incidence of Alzheimer's, which started taking place in the 80s, is following the fashion of low-fat, low-fat butter, yogurt, so, and I was part of that. We said, stay away from that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and
right.
now I have.
Actually, it started in the 70s, Joel. We
Yeah, I know.
vilified, and you want to know something? My professor, who I got my PhD with, in 1971, he said if we vilify fat and put carbohydrates on the bottom of the food pyramid, we are going to see an incidence of diabetes and obesity of the likes you've never seen. He passed away 3 years ago, but that was so true.
He
It's
could have
exactly
added
what happened.
Alzheimer's. He could have added Alzheimer's.
He could, yes.
We need the
He
fats
did
in
not
our
say
brain.
Alzheimer's, but yes.
Yeah, we need the fats in our brain. So
Right.
get the full fat yogurt and eat
Yes,
butter and
eat
stuff
the
in
full fat yogurt,
moderation.
absolutely.
And coconut oil.
And that's why a Mediterranean diet is so useful, because it emphasizes consumption of healthy fat. All right, so this is just more data to show that ketones, like these metabolites from fats, are very helpful in increasing brain health. So, basically this, you don't have to read that title, but basically this, all right, when we do a study where we're taking these exogenous ketones, we actually see an increase in blood flow in the brain. We see increased cerebral oxygen consumption and increased glucose utilization. So that's pretty compelling. That was also published in February of 2018. So the same month that Merck canned their base compound, this study was published. So maybe there's a correlation there. Right? So I want to talk about gut health too. So let's get back to that neurotransmitter. Let's get back to the acetylcholine. All right, because that's the thing that's driving the memory. So what can we do to make more of that? So this is just a little diagram that tells you that what's happening in your gut is directly related to what's happening in the brain. So if we're just going to focus on acetylcholine for the time being, I just want you to know that a large percentage, about 50% of acetylcholine, is produced in your gut. But it's only produced in your gut when you have good gut health. So you have a microbiome. I was just telling Tanya here that 90% of you is not even you. 90% of all the cells in your body are microbes that just live in you and on you. And your job is to feed them food that they like so that the good guys prosper and the bad guys can't take over. So when you have good health, good gut health, because you're eating the foods that they like, all right, you will have improved cognitive health, and also even the hormones that regulate your appetite will be better controlled, and so you'll have better body composition, right? So what are the kinds of foods that the bacteria in your gut eat? They like to eat leafy greens, oats, onions, garlic, artichokes, asparagus, things like that. They do not eat sugar. They do not eat carbs. All right, who's eating the sugar and the carbs? It's the yeast. All right, so I'll see lots of systemic yeast infection from my patients that have the worst diets. They're usually people who are cognitively impaired, who are very picky eaters, who will only eat white food. All right. All right. So you feed these guys the food that they like, and you will make the serotonin that makes you feel good. You'll make the dopamine that you need for motor coordination, and the acetylcholine for your memory. All right. So how can you? So if you don't have the right microbes in there to do all these wonderful things, what can you do to get them? All right, so you might want to be eating foods that have the bacteria that are good for you in it. Foods like yogurt, full-fat yogurt, all right, sauerkraut, miso, aged cheeses, kefir, which is a drinkable yogurt, fermented foods, tempeh, which is fermented soybeans, or you could take, I'm not adverse to prescribing a probiotic supplement. And in my practice, I don't prescribe just one brand. I prescribe about 12 different kinds of probiotics. But you can't just take a probiotic and all of a sudden your problems are solved. You have to foster the growth of those probiotics by, again, eating the foods that they like. So I just described the foods that they like. I'm really serious. You need to give them these kinds of foods. But also, all right, so what are those foods called? Those foods are called prebiotics. So prebiotics are non-digestible carbohydrates that feed the probiotics. So if you're like a protein bar person, I don't really recommend protein bars, but you'll notice when you go to the supermarket, if you're reading the ingredient list, you'll notice things like inulin and fructooligosaccharides. These are prebiotic fibers that the probiotics in your gut love. So depending on what bacteria are there, some people will digest these things more than others. So if you're getting gassy, it's not because you're sensitive or allergic to that food. If you're getting gassy when you eat a protein bar, it's probably because of the way that you're metabolizing the inulin and the fructooligosaccharides. But what you can also be eating are resistant starches. You really have to come to the resistant starch lecture. I have another person who comes in, she does a great lecture on resistant starch. So what is resistant starch? Really powerful to promote the growth of the bacteria in your gut. Resistant starch comes from potatoes. What kind of potatoes? Potatoes that are cooled, that are cooked, that are either boiled or baked, and then cooled. When you cool a potato, a cooked potato, the starch, the starch becomes resistant, which is very good for the bacteria that are in your digestive tract, particularly the large intestine. You can also get resistant starch from unripened bananas. So I do recommend eating greenish bananas. I actually have a closet full of banana flour. And legumes. All right, beans are a great source of resistant starch. Also corn, but it's hard to find non-GMO corn. But if you can get your hands on some nice, fresh, non-genetically modified corn, have at it. So very good for gut health. All right, and we do know that as we get older, all right, as we lose our cognitive intelligence, we could definitely see that the health of our digestive tract declines. The first sign is when you start to see acid reflux, right? That's the sign that your digestive tract is failing. I prescribe lots of different protein shakes that have prebiotic ingredients. This is one that has inulin and fructooligosaccharides. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, now, I also didn't say that I'm one of the fitness instructors of the Y. Right? And I do a lot of classes too, so I'm exhausted. All right, but it has been clinically demonstrated that exercise increases the size of the brain. All right, it increases your immune system. It reduces that insulin resistance. So if cognitive impairment is correlated with your inability to utilize insulin, you can reverse those effects by exercising. And what kind of exercise do you need to do? Actually, there are studies that support anything. Walking, aerobic exercise, weight-bearing exercise. Right now, we're hyper-focused on weight-bearing exercise, like boxing. That's why Ruth Bader Ginsburg is so popular. She does all that boxing. And look at her. She's got great brain health. So we're very fixated on that, but really anything will do. Just get moving. All right? And so there is a clinical study that is recruiting volunteers right now. It's called the Exert study, that's specifically going to look at cognitive health and exercise, and the studies are being executed at participating YMCAs. All right, so I didn't have that slide last time, so remember that, Exert. And I would love to know if there are any Y's in you. It's Exert study.
Exert?
Yeah, exert, like don't exert yourself. All right. So what kind of exercise? Really anything. But the resistance training is very popular right now. I did introduce this thing. This is what my other aunt, who's 91 and going strong, this Ageless Grace program. So look that up, Ageless Grace. This is a combination of mental exercises and physical exercises that our aunt, who has tremendous brain health, really loves. So I'm going to promote this. I've been trying to get this going in the Y, but I'm not getting any traction here.
Me either.
Yeah. So as we come to the end of this presentation, I'd like to end with reminding you about the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. So 9 risk factors for Alzheimer's disease that include the kind of education that you have. Being educated, the more educated you are, the less likely you'll have present with cognitive impairment. All right, midlife hypertension, midlife obesity, hearing loss, that's a big one, late life depression, diabetes, physical inactivity, which totally makes sense, smoking, and social isolation. What's on the bottom of that Mediterranean diet pyramid. All right, and other solutions to decelerate the aging process, just stay mentally alert, play an instrument, so that Dr. Richard Isaacson, he actually has all of his patients learning how to play an instrument. All right, learn a new language, all right, play games like Sudoku and juggling. But I do want to say this, It's not like you do Sudoku every day and you're going to reduce your risk. Because once you've learned how to do Sudoku, you're just using the same parts of your brain over and over again. So learn it, get good at it, and move on. Do something else. All right, cross-train your brain. I have all my patients brushing their teeth with their non-dominant hand. Make sure you're getting a good night's sleep. So if that's a problem, see Dr. Giroux. He's really good at sleep restoration. Stress management, aromatherapy. You have 7 senses. The one sense that is the strongest and lasts the longest is your sense of smell. Like when you go into your grandmother's house 60 years later, you remember what that house smelled like. All right. Rosemary is very good for cognitive health. I have some of my cognitively impaired patients using rosemary oil, and also Dale Carnegie did amazing things to indoctrinate us all to the power of positive thinking. All right, and I'm going to, I promise, last slide. Laugh every day stimulates 5 different areas of the brain. So I'm going to end with a little chuckle. So here's a little joke with the watermelon, which I have in the back. You have the watermelon and the cantaloupe. The watermelon says, "Let's run away and get married." And the cantaloupe says, "I'm sorry, but I can't alone." All right, so that's it. So